All right. So today started out pretty good. Had a good night's sleep. It's actually pretty true. If you can't get to sleep, try going to sleep an hour or two later, because that's exactly what I did. I went to sleep a good 2 hours later because there was a movie that I was watching, and it ended up helping me go to sleep. And I think I'm pretty good and well rested. I was watching a few videos on YouTube about supercharger or turbocharger. Now, I know that you can get a shitload more power using a turbocharger system versus a supercharger system, but my wife has already told me that she would prefer the supercharger over the turbocharger sound, just on the sound alone. So my thoughts on that is to get a supercharger and get one that gives me all the power I need, pretty much, to beat just about anybody. And then after that, do all the weight reduction and all that stuff I can on my car. I know there's a tubular K-member. They made a tubular front bumper mount and all that stuff. So those alone would save me a good 100 pounds. And then there's, you know, all the suspension components and all that stuff. And really, in order to get my car to a point where I can compete against a what is it called, C7 Corvette Z07 package, I would need a supercharger, of course. Pretty much any supercharger would work. All I need is like 200 more horsepower. Then there's the weight reduction. I'd need to reduce the weight of my car by about 300 pounds, which I think is going to be pretty easy just by swapping out the OEM parts for tubular parts. And then there's suspension. I'd have to upgrade the suspension a little bit, and I have plans for that. But the biggest thing is our tires, the wheel and tire package. In that, I believe the tire size of the Corvette is something like 335, and I think at max you can put 315 on the rear of this Mustang. And then on the front is going to be easy to match. The front is supposed to be something like 285, and that's actually pretty simple on this Mustang. I believe there's people putting 305s on the front of these Mustangs, so 285 isn't going to be that hard of a thing to match. Now, when it comes to, I know I went on and checked tire size, the Corvette versus Mustang GT, and I went on to a tire calculator, and that shows you the silhouette and all that stuff. Now, the tires that I have on this Mustang stock are actually taller than the tires on a Corvette all around. So in order for me to get on the level of a Corvette, theoretically I would have to go with smaller tires. But the Corvette is running on 20-inch rim, or 21-inch rims on the back. I believe it was 21-inch, and 19s on the front. Now I got, I believe, 18s all around. It might be 19s all around. They're just stock. So if I go, let's assume they're 18s. Theoretically, I would have the better advantage just because of unsprung weight. Unsprung weight is like mostly like centrifugal force type stuff. And for that, it's more like if I were to up my tire size to the same, or my wheel size to the same as a Corvette, I think I would actually be hindering my performance rather than improving it. So what I think I might do is something equivalent to that. I believe the largest anybody's ever put on the rear of this Mustang is a 325. But when you get that size of that wide of a tire, you run into issues. You have to have like super custom wheels. You have to make sure all the spacing's correct. You have to make sure all the fitment's correct, and you you have to just make sure everything is correct on it for it to work perfectly. Talking about that minivan needs to learn how to use a turn signal. Anyways, so like I was saying, the tires, I might be able to get away with a smaller tire package on the rear tires. I know the tires on the front I can match easily. However, it would be better if I stuck with like the stock tire or wheel size, or up it to 19s, and then after that it's just a matter of, you know, the tires you can save weight on more easily than the wheels. Of course, there are wheels that are lighter than others, and it all depends on how they're made and what they're made of and all that stuff. But then you get into cost. So if you want a wheel that only weighs 12 pounds, you're going to be paying $3,000 a rim or a wheel, and that's not what I'm prepared to do at this point. And I'll be completely honest, before I get into anything that requires me to heavily modify my vehicle, I'll probably be too old to do any of it. Either that, or I'll probably have another vehicle before then, which is another reason why I don't want to modify my car heavily until the car is actually paid off, or almost paid off, because I have repossessed people's vehicles that were heavily modified, and they weren't able to get their car back because they couldn't make the payments anymore, because all their payments were going to the modifications. So it's a big toss-up. Yawn. But I definitely know the first thing that I want to do is get a supercharger. And then the other thing that I mean, that's the first thing I want to do on heavy modification. There are other things that I am probably going to do before I get to that point. one of which is obviously tires. Now, I'm running on stock rims, and they are probably 18 by 8, 18 by 9, something like that. And I already know that the largest tire I can put on in 18, recommendedly, is 265. In the past, I have done 275s on the same size rims, but that's not exactly recommended. It does give you more of that NASCAR tire on rim look. Oh, what the hell? Anyways, yeah, it gives you that look, which is a real cool look, completely opposite of, you know, the small tire on the really huge car, lowrider car style, and other really ugly looks. I think the ugliest look I've ever seen somebody do with tires and rims is having their wheels stick out from the side of the wheel well. And now that looks great on like a rock crawler or something of that sorts, but it looks completely horrible if you have the small tires on a big SUV and they're sticking out past the rim, or past the wheel well. It's just ridiculous. What are you thinking? Alright, looks like I'm going to have to park a little far from the area that I want to park in, but I've got time. So if I want to get to the performance of a Corvette, then I'm going to need to lighten the weight from my vehicle, and I'm going to need to get better or wider tires, and then I'm also going to need to get suspension. But if you think about it, that's probably, the supercharger is going to cost the most likely, then the tires and rim package, and then the suspension, in that order. And after all is said and done, we're looking about $20,000. This car cost me about $30,000, so that's about $50,000. And I think that's about a $40,000-$50,000 difference between the Corvette Z07 package compared to my car in total, which means that that just shows that it's better to buy a base car and just upgrade with aftermarket stuff. Even if I were to go with the Ford Racing supercharger, I would still be, and then Ford Racing parts, I would still be cheaper than probably the cheapest Corvette, C7 Corvette. But the first and foremost thing I'm gonna need are tires, obviously. That's a dead giveaway. And that's about it. I mean, that's all I have to say right now. I can't really think of anything else to say. So I'll see you guys later.